Masha Zavialova has been with the museum for the last 14 years and has curated well over 100 exhibitions in the galleries and outside. She's an award-winning translator and such a wonderful expert to work with both in the museum and on these programs. So with that, please welcome Dr. Masha Zavialova.
Good morning, everyone. And today, thank you, Michelle, for your very nice introduction. And today we are going to have another Zoom program that we dedicate to our exhibitions that we currently have in our museum. And today's theme is political cartoons. It's tragic days for Ukraine going through the aggression by a large and strong neighbor, the Russian Federation. We support Ukraine and are very strongly against the war and condemn the aggressor. And part of how we feel about this war is expressed in our exhibitions, and specifically this one, Say No to War, political cartoons by Ukrainian and Russian artists. This exhibition is brought to us together with Andrey Feldshteyn, who is our partner in this project, a co-organizer of the exhibition and our liaison with the contemporary political cartoonists from Ukraine, from Russia, those who are from those countries but currently live or stay outside those countries. Andrey is a professional artist and cartoonist. He graduated from the Aviation Institute in Leningrad and worked for the House of Humor and Satire in Leningrad, published his work in many newspapers during the Soviet period, and came to this country in 1993. He's also a book illustrator and an award-winning cartoonist. So Andrey, could you please join us, and would you like to say a few words about this project and yourself, your work too?
Hello, everybody. Nice to be on this program. So a few words about myself. So I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, Leningrad at that time. Started to draw cartoons from my school years and still cannot stop to do this. And thank you, Maria, for introducing me. So you told half of what I was going to tell about myself. So when the war started, I just couldn't stop thinking what I can do to stop all these terrible things. And it just struck me that I was able to do something. I can organize an international exhibition. It's not the first time we did this, I did this. It was easy for me because cartoonists are a sort of a very special community. They are interacting with each other during various cartoon contests, cartoon exhibitions. And what also helped me, I'm running a forum for cartoonists. It has about 700 members, and also it's including cartoonists from 25 countries. So I just sent invitations to my friends in various countries, mostly to Ukraine and Russia, and they responded with very beautiful works, which we can see now at the museum. And what else? I would like to thank TMORA, the Museum of Russian Art, which helped me to organize this exhibition, and they just helped in everything. So thank you, TMORA. I guess this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Andrey, for partnering with us in organizing this show. Of course, Andrey is our connection to the cartoonists and to the work, and our work is installing and just working on the selections. So it was really wonderful, a wonderful project to work together as a museum. What's the role of the museum is to give access to people who come to the museum, to install exhibitions and share those with the public in Minnesota who come to our museum. And this project would not have been possible, of course, without Andrey. He is our driving force behind it. Thank you, Andrey. So with this, let me start sharing my screen, and let's look at some of the cartoons that we have in our exhibition. And we'll go. I hope now you can see the my computer on your screens, and we will start with Viktor Holub, who lives in Ukraine, born in Ukraine, and he lives in the Rivne region, which is the northwest of Ukraine. And he actively participates and participated in Soviet era and post-Soviet Ukrainian publications, and is a winner of international contests. So let's now look at some images. So first of all, just talking about political cartoons, and we are familiar with this art form. We all saw cartoons in newspapers, magazines, online, so in flyers, and so all kinds of publications. Political cartoons as an art form are unique in the way they are a blend of art and politics. And also political cartoons are a cognitive blend of cognitive blend means that this art form appeals to many levels of how we perceive the world. So it appeals to our feelings and to reason and to values, moral values, and also a sense of beauty, our aesthetic judgment. But that's not all the political cartoons do. They also try to encourage some action, so do something about it, or respond emotional and in action sometimes. So they are an activist form of art, and we often take political cartoons for granted. And today we will look at some of the pictures and see how they work. Every piece of art, every work of art is a kind of a, for me as a person who works in a museum, it's a kind of a machine, you know, like a mechanism that works or does not work sometimes. And it's always interesting to see what it is that makes it work, makes it effective, makes it impactful, and has us responding to this artwork. So here we have two cartoons by Holub, Viktor Holub, Ukraine, just showing you again a short bio of the artist that's included in our show. So if you come to the museum, you will look at the pictures, at the images, but also you will learn a little bit about these artists, who they are, where they come from, what their achievements are. And here you can see two. So we have about a dozen artists in our exhibition, each represented by between 1 and 3 works. So we wanted the show to be representative, instead of doing many works by one artist, no matter how remarkable, we decided to include more artists. And we will be including even more in after this exhibition moves from the mezzanine level to a more permanent location in our lower gallery. So this cartoon on your left, you see Putin in a bunker and a bomb which says sanctions. And this is a special kind of missile or bomb. It's a bunker buster. It's a special kind. It's not just, so when we see that the artist knows the contemporary modern warfare. He did not just include whatever bomb it is. Someone, I'm not a specialist in weapons and arms, but someone told me that it's a bunker busting missile or bomb. Frankly, I don't even know the difference between bombs and missiles, so forgive me for using these terms indiscriminately. But what's interesting about this cartoon, that we get the message right away, but what it shows also is that the sanctions, the economic sanctions, are a kind of war. So here and in many, probably in all art, we see metaphorical expression, not direct, but metaphorical, explaining something through another thing. So you see that the bunker that Putin is in can be strong enough to protect him from physical damage, because well, it's apparently he's still there undamaged, but sanctions are something that would penetrate the thick walls of that bunker. And another thing that we can see in this cartoon that's going on here, it's also saying, it's an appeal to politicians, because quite often cartoons encourage some actions. They say, keep going, sanctions are working. Because quite often, if you listen, as many of us listen to a lot of political analysts and journalists, and some of them say, oh, economic sanctions are not really effective, and you need to bring more military action, more weapons, more military stuff. But this artist says, no, the economic sanctions are working, and this is probably at this point is the only thing that can penetrate the defense of Putin's regime and break into that bunker that where the regime thinks they are safe. In fact, they are not. And if we look at the cartoon on the right with the rat, it's very simple, right? We just see two images, but as all cartoons, it packs a lot into a very economical means of expression. So we see this rat, and for some reason, and the shadow that it casts is a bear. And of course, Russia is quite often associated, or Russia's totem animal is the bear, the Russian bear. And the artist made sure that it's not counterintuitive. So if you see the outlines of the rat, look at the paws and the claws and the nose and the ears, especially look at the ears and even the bristle on the back of the neck. That's actually the quite an accurate quite an accurate portrayal of the rat as far as the outline, right? It's quite possible that this rat would cast this shadow, with the exception of the teeth, probably. The bear has a little bit more of the teeth. And so the rat, who is the rat, thinks or wants to cast a shadow of a bear, but what we see is in fact a rat. And when people don't see the rat for who it is, they will only see the bear and be frightened. Also the background, and I had a discussion with our docents about this background, and there was questions about what does it mean, because in a cartoon everything means something, and so for me it's probably the Kremlin wall. Andrey, what do you think?
Well, it looks so, I guess. Yeah. Actually, I never thought about this before I thought it with all it. But yeah, it's possible. But speaking about the red, I associated the red with Putin himself from the beginning, because in his memoirs, he described a situation about his fight with a rat, which was pushed to the corner, and then this rat started to attack him. And his behavior in his own mind is exactly like this rat's behavior. He probably feels himself that he cannot go back anymore, and it's time to attack. In our case, it's to attack the world, I think.
Yeah, I found this quote from Putin. Was you can see it online for those who understand Russian. There is a film by a filmmaker, I think his last name is Kondrashov or similar to that, but the film is called Putin 2018, and there you can see, it's quite a long film about Putin and very positive, from a governmental commission, I guess. But there Putin indeed talks himself. And this quote has often been reprinted at many sources. I got it right from what he said from that film. And he says that, so he lived in St. Petersburg in one of those older houses with that Andrey and I are quite familiar with. Both of us come from St. Petersburg originally. And he said that once on the stairs, he spotted a rat, and he ran after, he began to pursue that rat and drove it into a corner. And suddenly the rat, when it didn't have any place to go, threw itself at me, as he said. It attacked. And he said it just did not just chase him, it jumped from landing to landing, trying to land on his head. And then he has this phrase, and this film was in 2018. He says it in a kind of a threatening manner, which in 2018, well, some people were beginning to get, because that was after the annexation of Crimea already. But still, and he says, unwarranted. Everyone should keep it in mind. Don't drive anyone into the corner. And Andrey, you're right. It seems that that was, you know, the wish fulfillment for Putin, when he is not just driven into a corner, but he is often portrayed as a rat now. It's a kind of a label, political label, nicknaming for him. And here we see another cartoon by, this time it's by a Russian cartoonist who is residing in France now, but he was born in Minsk, Belarusia, still the USSR, and Belarus. So his life is shared between 4 countries: Belarus, Russia, and France. No, 3. Sorry. And here Lopatin is, and at one point he lived in Kamchatka in the forest. And he left Russia around 2018, actually, when he was persecuted for a drawing which included the likeness of a member of the Russian parliament. So which shows that already 4 years ago, Russia was turning into that repressive regime of a totalitarian kind. And here he shows Putin and Lukashenko as two rats, and Lukashenko, although bigger than the small Putin rat, but is feeding off Putin, who is nursing him, showing this connection between the Russian and the Belarusian leader. And it's quite a powerful work by Denis Lopatin, who usually often paints in this realistic style. So he employs a different kind of approach to cartoons. A lot of cartoonists just use the line and the outlines and the to express their meanings, and this artist uses a lot of color. That's another work by Lopatin, also showing Putin, and he often shows Putin as a rat or as a child, so infantilizing him, showing his immature approach to politics. And here Putin is enraged because he is trying to cut Ukraine but cannot, and breaking a lot of utensils, a lot of silverware. Also a beautifully executed cartoon. You see the plate is in a realistic style, and the map is using a different approach to it. And I would like you to look at another work by Lopatin. And this work also has some even historical background that's helpful to know. So Putin and bloodbath are, of course, associated now because of the horrible war that against peaceful citizens of Ukraine, as well as the Ukrainian army, but a lot of peaceful population is being perishing and going through horrible sufferings in Ukraine right now. So it's like a bloodbath. But there is also another story here. The story of Putin going to Siberian shamans and using, trying to resort to the cure that they offer, and also using some of the traditional quite horrible cure of bathing in the blood from the antlers of young morel deer. And let me show you, let's go to the next slide to explain more. So Putin's defense minister Shoigu himself comes from southern Siberia, from Tuva, and it is believed that he was one of the people who introduced Putin to this cure, bathing in the blood or in the special, well, they call it a blood. Sometimes it's not directly blood, but the extract from the antlers of marrow deer. We don't have this cartoon in our exhibition, but it kind of, I just wanted to show it to you. And this is the beauty of a Zoom presentation, right? We can add more materials to explain what we have in our galleries. So Shoigu was the one who introduced Putin to this. And here we have some photographs from the internet, and you can see the beautiful deer. You see their antlers that they grow very fast, and sometimes people say it's almost half an inch a day. And these antlers are covered with very soft kind of fur. It's very soft, it's like suede, and they are full of the juices from their body and the blood. And what people do, they traditionally, for centuries, believed that what is contained in these antlers is really very medicinal. It helps longevity, it helps virility, it helps the immune system. So it has these multiple effects on the human organism, on the human body. And that's what they do. They cut those. They say that it's they do it painlessly, but I don't see how it can be. It's such a violation of the life and independence of these beautiful animals. And you can see these antlers here in that photograph on the top. So it's barbaric, it's cruel, even though the deer don't die, they say, they survive, they begin to grow new antlers, but still. And here you can see a picture, and this is from an like a commercial advertisement site that advertise the medicinal qualities of this blood bath in the blood and other the juices from the antlers of the morel deer. And so it's probably not so well known outside of the Russian sources, though probably it is. And that's why cartoonists use this metaphor, the trope or the comparison, or whatever you have, of a bloodbath associated with Putin, showing another side of him as a superstitious person who wants to, who is using this very barbaric and cruel way to keep himself healthy, even though the whole world doesn't want him to live a long and happy life, I would say this. So Andrey, so would you like to? Mm-hmm. Okay, could you unmute?
I cannot add anything to your story. You just described everything exactly like I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So this cartoon certainly has two meanings, like you said. It's a war in Ukraine, and also, yeah, I just had a question. Whose painting is it, the previous one?
You know, I will send you the reference after
Oh,
that.
okay.
I'll have to look it
Okay,
up
thank you.
right at my fingertips. And this cartoon, I just would like to say just a couple words about how some cartoons are painted against the white background. So when they are shown on the white screen, they have no borders, and some of them have borders. So just saying that cartoonists use these different approaches to how they do their work, and just emphasizing that these are, no matter how sharp or tragic or horrible some of their images are, they're definitely art. They're works of art that artists put a lot of thought and a lot of talent into. So our next artist is Alexei Kustovsky, born in Kiev, Ukraine. And like many cartoonists, he was not trained professionally in an art school or an art college or an art academy. He did his graduate studies at a botanical garden, but he began to publish already more than 20 years ago. He has worked at the Voice of Ukraine. It's also an online publication and website that publishes a lot of political and economic analysis. I often visit that website and like it a lot. So we have several of Oleg Kustovsky's work here, and on your right, this little girl, this is probably one of the emotionally most powerful cartoons in our exhibition, also very tragic, showing that this war is hurting children and needs to be stopped. So it's the horror that needs to be stopped. That's the message that we get from this cartoon. And it also paints the little girl who is trying to, and this is what children do, you know, sometimes the only way they can protect themselves is close their eyes and ears, and in her imagination, or the only thing that can protect her from that weapon are her toys. It's really a very powerful cartoon using the children imagery. And of course, when artists use children, that's it is always very powerful. And this cartoon also calls for action, and this call is like, you need to stop the war immediately. Children are getting hurt, and quite often there is nothing to protect them from the hurt except for their imagination and their toys that they have. This cartoon on your left is the opposite of this one, because it's very hopeful and empowering. We can see here a Russian tank and an old Ukrainian woman that's unraveling the tank as if it's made from wool, from thread. And the image is quite powerful because it shows that the whole population is against the war, unraveling the war, opposed to the war, and powerful enough to stop the advance of the Russian tanks. So, and you can see here a lot of details, like this is not the first tank this woman turned into a roll of wool. Also a cat, always a reassuring member of the household, who is not, also even the cat is not afraid. So this cartoon is encouraging, and it's encourages people to not to be afraid, to take courage, to stay together, and to showing that even the efforts of everyone, including, you know, all the women, retired people, contribute to the victory. And another cartoon that is not included in our present show, but we will show it once the show moves downstairs early next week. And I included it just to talk a little bit about cartoons and what kind of techniques and devices they use in order to produce meaning, to create a message. So this cartoon references Le Petit Prince, or The Little Prince, a famous story, a famous book by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, a French writer who was also a pilot, an aviator, who perished during the Second World War. So his airplane crashed somewhere, probably in the Mediterranean, I believe. And for a long time, nothing was known about him and what happened to his aircraft. But his book, the Little Prince, first of all, in France, it's an iconic book. It became a cult book, as well as in many countries in Europe and Russia and Ukraine. It was translated into many languages, and most people would get this message. The Little Prince, the embodiment of everything that's pure and good and innocent, and that needs and quite strong also at the same time. So the story goes, as the story goes, of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, is that the little prince lived on his own planet. And this planet just had one flower. It was a rose. And he visited other planets because he just wanted to see what was happening there. And there were some other reasons why he traveled. And here you can see an evil planet that he here in this cartoon is encountering or encounters, the Putin planet. And the little prince is cutting off the thorns of the thistle that's literally makes up the planet. You can see the thistle, the flowering thistle on top that represents the crown. Also the cross, actually, which is a reference to Putin's using, or employing, or taking advantage of the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia to influence people. So using the church as part of his propaganda machine, in fact. And you can see reference to the stars, and quite often we see that a reference to the Soviet past of Putin and bringing the country back to its totalitarian state. And also you can see the weapons, of course, the bombs and shells that the little prince is cutting. Also, there are some the meanings and messages that are not so obvious. For example, the thistle in Russian and probably in Ukrainian, I need to check what's the thistle is in Ukrainian, can be translated as devil's scare or devil's plant, чертополох. And this meaning is lost on English speakers and probably French speakers, but it's there. And we had a painting, exhibited a painting in our exhibition of a year ago of Ukrainian Soviet era artists, where one Ukrainian artist, Yuri Commandant, used the same metaphor, the same image to show on which side is bad and which side is good. And the meaning is usually lost on the people who don't know the language, but explanations always help. And I know that instead of distracting people from looking at these images, they are very, very happy to learn that these, different levels of meaning, because unpacking a work of art is really one of the fun things that you can do in a museum, when you gain some more understanding, more insight compared to when you just came to the museum. So you leave the museum adding to the knowledge and to these artistic and cultural insights. So you bring it with you. This is what you can take out of a museum, these insights that enlighten your mind in a way. This is not on display now, but we are going to put it on display and you will see it soon. And of course, the connotation of the Little Prince, it's the whole of the European civilization, the West, not just even though representing the Ukrainian colors of the flag, but showing that it's part of Ukraine, a part of that European cultural heritage, and it's on the good side versus the evil planet of Putin. So you see how packed this small cartoon is with different images. And here I just included a couple of illustrations. One of them is from an original drawing by the writer, by Antoine Saint-Exupéry, because he also did some drawings for his book. And some other, it's just a book cover, Le Petit Prince, in French. And this is another cartoon by the same artist, Kustovsky. Sorry, Andrey, would you like to say a few words about this one?
Russia is famous for its ballet, and drawing Putin as a ballerine, it's also representing Russia itself, I think. So it's a sort of crazy military ballerine. And it's just a common way or trick for cartoonists to depict a man as a woman. So it's kind of adding satirical or humorous part to this drawing. But I really love like it was done. It's kind of very delicate drawing and very contrast and meaningful, full of political satire for the old Russia, like Soviet Russia. So I really just loved this drawing when I first saw it. So probably this cartoon moved me to contact to Alexei, and so we after this he sent us some beautiful works. So probably that's it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just such nice work as far as his other cartoons that we looked at, and this one too. It's slightly different. It's just has a lot of red. It's not colorful, but it also full of symbols. So I like the work that packs a lot of different meanings or different approaches or different symbols into it. So we can see here, yeah, the Soviet symbols of the hammer and sickle, and even the smaller ones under Putin under his armpits, right? Because when I was looking, it's just the first time that I'm beginning to see them. When you look at a smaller print, and it's even smaller if it were published in a newspaper or a magazine. You don't actually see them. And on my big screen, which is quite big, I can see clearly that these are hammer and sickles in his armpits. And also, again, the cross. So that's, you see, the artist is consistent in how he has artists, political cartoonists, they express their own opinions and positions and political affiliations. So we saw that cross before on the head of the Russia's leader, and here it is again. And the skirt is made of stars, and the stars are actually trapdoors where from where bombs and shells go out of. And the trim of the skirt is made of soldiers, and you can see that they are also just the trim of the skirt of this horrible ballet dancer, and they can be They are actually, some of them are getting killed, and we see splashes of blood on the floor. So that's how these images work. That's why they are so impactful. And you can see these many different things going on at the same time. Valery Momet from Ukraine, and quite powerful drawings, works that remind me of resemble a poster to me more than a cartoon, right? Would you agree, Andrey? Because you are our specialist in the genre. Would you call it a cartoon or a poster, rather?
It's more likely a poster or very strong political cartoon. What Valery told me that he was born in the part of Ukraine where there are a lot of fields full of sunflowers, and actually the only thing he could see in his childhood were these sunflowers growing up and a large blue sky above it. So it was a very natural symbol for him, a symbol of Ukraine, of his native country. So in a way, it's mostly a poster, I think, because it represents the country, the tragedy which is going on in this land. So I guess this is it. And this is a very powerful image, and because of it, it was chosen by the author of an article in Star Tribune because of the power of this image.
Yeah, it's very economical. Doesn't use, unlike if you compare it to the previous cartoon, right? That uses a lot of visual language, right? I would say the visual language to even those tiny little hammer and sickles in the armpits of that ballerina that you can only see when you enlarge the image. So it's really packed. This one is very simple, very striking and powerful. The sunflower is a symbol of Ukraine, crucified on that cross against the blue sky. And the other is also like a poster, but beautifully done, beautiful colors. It's the window during the air strike that's protected by tape. You put tape on windows so that they don't break. And that's what it represents. And there's this beautiful star in the middle and the moon that shines through the window. So there is light somewhere out there.
Valery is a master of just traditional cartoons, humorous cartoons, which were drawn maybe in a little bit different manner. But these two images really look like posters. And speaking again about the first drawing, it's representing not just crucifixion, but resurrection as well. It's kind of gives you the idea that Ukraine will be resurrected, life again, and beautiful again as this flower.
Yeah. Thank you for this comment. Yeah, crucifixion comes together in one package with the resurrection. So it's also hopeful. And another cartoon that has a literary reference by Yuri Pogoryelov, born in Ukraine and now residing in the US. And he is the one who is a physics professor, also not a professional cartoonist, but doing wonderful work. He has lived in the United States since 2017, but his first cartoon was published in 1959. And now he mostly draws cartoons as a hobby for himself and his friends. So in this drawing, we see Putin represented as a cockroach. And again, this you have to know some of, have a glimpse into the Russian literary culture that was also shared with through schools and through children's education with other republics of the Soviet Union, translated into many languages, a poem, a children's poem story in verse by Kornei Chukovsky, which is called The Monster Cockroach. And the story goes that a cockroach came to the animal kingdom and said that he was the ruler of the universe and he wanted these animals, powerful animals, tigers and hippos and other animals, gorillas, to worship him and bring him his children so that he could eat them. Until a sparrow comes, a little bird, and says, "Oh, what is it? It's my lunch," and eats it. And the poem was written, you see the year of the publication, I chose this book cover, 1923. So way before Stalin came to power, and after Stalin's demise and the de-Stalinization of the country by Khrushchev in the late 1950s, the cockroach began to be associated with Stalin, and the little bird with Khrushchev. And in some books, I saw that the little sparrow was painted wearing a Ukrainian shirt. Because Khrushchev, I believe, comes from, where does he come from? Southern Russia or Ukraine?
No idea, sorry.
Yeah, and
I felt like Ukraine, but who knows?
Andrey, would you like to add more? Because I know this, we share our childhood in Leningrad, so probably you read this poem many times. Or you.
Yeah. The thing is that there's a famous poem by Osip Maldenstam, a Russian poet, who described Stalin as a cockroach. So probably it was transmitted to Putin by Yuri Pogorelov, this idea. So there's a kind of one more association with the cockroach and Russian tyrant. So probably that's it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Yeah, so some of these cartoons have these very interesting references. And now let's look at the work of Andrey. And this one, which is, and I put these two paintings together. So this Andrey is basing his work and creating a reference, a visual reference, not to a story, but like the cockroach story, but to a painting which is also iconic in Russian art. By Savrasov, a beautiful painting that is preserved in the Tretyakov Gallery, that was published in children's textbooks. I remember from my school years, it was in one of our textbooks for grade 1 or 2 or 3, quite early. The beautiful painting is called "The Rooks Have Come," shows spring, but the landscape is distorted by the tanks, and there is a cockroach that looks quite ominous here. And Andrey, would you like, it's your work, would you like to talk about it?
Okay. It was done, the drawing was done just at the beginning of the war. And the nature kind of was in this state. The snow was melting, the sky was becoming more blue. The original painting by Savrasov was a symbol of coming spring, of hope, and it was really beautifully done, and that's why it was put in so many textbooks for children, because for them it was a symbol of their native country, the symbol of beauty of this country, and so on. And then I just saw on TV all these terrible pictures of corpse lying on snow, on this melting snow, and this destroyed military vehicles and stuff. And they just, these two images just combined together. And it was a very strong contrast between hope and death itself. And some people just say that it's just scary drawing. And probably it's scary for myself as well. But because of this contrast, it has some power, I guess.
Yeah, and I can say that we can say that the war is actually happening in Ukraine. But what I think Andrey's message and meaning behind it is that this war is destroying Russia's culture, the Russian cultural landscape, actually. We cannot look back at Russian culture now with the same eyes as we did before the war, because the war is now part of Russian history and Russian culture, the unjust war. So whenever we will look back, not at this painting, we are not talking about an individual painting, but at Russian culture and history as such, we will look at it from the position of the country that unleashed this war, the unjust aggressive war, and we won't be able to do it differently. So the cultural landscape of Russia is forever impacted by this.
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah, I think it's time for us. I stopped sharing my screen, and if people have questions, we are here to respond.
We don't have any questions here coming through. I think you've done such a great job of going through each of these works. Tell me, though, I think that our audience would like to hear, as you've gone through the process of Andrey contacting this community of cartoonists, how many works have you gathered thus far?
I think we have about, at this point, 70 works at least.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Probably more, 80.
And I think everyone would find it interesting to know, I know that we mentioned this at the top, and this is part of the title of the exhibition. These are works from Ukrainian and Russian artists. So we have, is there anything that you can say to those artists that are in Russia? I know some were listed as anonymous. Anything that you'd like to share with our audience today about the artists in Russia who are sharing this work? Is it risky for them?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why some of them, or just one of them, or two, I wanted to rename anonymous. And one of them is, I think he is 80 years old. So not really able to fully withstand the oppression and the pressure that the government is putting on everyone who is oppositional, who is expressing and who is outspoken in expressing their views. Yeah, it is quite dangerous. I know that a lot of people left the country. Some people are still in the country, and blogging and presenting, participating in all kinds of programs on YouTube. analyzing the situation, and quite a lot of that. But we should remember, I know quite often people say that why is it that the opposition is not more outspoken and does not go out into the streets? And I think we should just keep in mind that it's a totalitarian state. Look at the history of the Soviet Union. There were 15 countries in the Soviet Union, and let's just take the period after Stalin, even. After Stalin, 1953 to 1991, 15 countries, including Belarus, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Moldova. And how many protests were there? None. We know of one in Novocherkassk. Mass protests, we don't know of. Our historical records don't have those. How many times people tried to overturn the government? Not a single time. Mm-hmm. Because when you live in a totalitarian country, it's very different from when you live in a country that does not have a dictator on top. Your consciousness is difficult. Even when your country is at war, you have freedom at least. It's horrible what's happening in Ukraine, but Ukraine has emerged as a democratic country that has this freedom and fights for its independence and doesn't want that totalitarian rule anymore. But so I have great respect for artists within Russia who are opposing this regime, who are outspoken and are not afraid to talk, because that involves a lot of danger, not just for them, but members of their family and their friends and their. So that's what I want to say. Andrey, are you?
Well, I even, I don't know what to add. I just wanted to thank you and Michelle for this great show. And I learned a few things from your presentation, which I kind of didn't know before. It was really interesting for myself. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for working with us, and I hope we will continue. We pledge this exhibition to keep going until the end of the war. So we will involve more cartoons, more artists from different countries, and I just hope that more people come to our museum to see it. I find it a fascinating and very important thing that we are doing together.
Yeah. Actually, I made a presentation of this exhibition on my forum, and I'll send you a link later.
Oh, wonderful. We can share that here too. We'd love to.
Okay. I can send it right away, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we'll take care of that, but anything that we can share. And on that point, as we have said, as Masha and Andrey have said, Masha reiterated this at the beginning, that the museum takes a very strong stand for the people of Ukraine and against Russian aggression. So this exhibition is very important to us in this partnership. I'm really glad that in the light of anything that we can do this together. And I think for all of you watching or who are able to come see this exhibition, how important and remarkable it is that these two individuals, Andrey and Masha, who are from Leningrad, can come together and give us insight, not only looking at the cartoons, but as two individuals who grew up in Russia and have this really interesting and important insight in this time. If you go to our website, we do have links to where if you are looking for ways to donate to support people and refugees of Ukraine, we have 4 vetted charities that are listed there, along with our our statement, standing with the people of Ukraine. So if you want to help in that way, we encourage you. We also have other things in the shop that those funds go to Ukraine as well. So be looking for that. With that, do you have any other final comments, Masha, before we let everybody go?
I just want to thank everyone, our participants in that program, and I hope to see you guys and your friends and relatives in our museum.
Yes. And also a big thank you to anyone who's watching, who are or will be watching, who are the artists who took part in this exhibition. You are incredible. Thank you so much for your participation in this as well. And with that, this again will be available for later viewing. So we hope that you'll spread the word, and please come visit us. This exhibition will be up and changing locations into a more permanent but still rotating exhibition in the lower gallery up until the end of the war. So thank you, Andrey. Thank you, Masha. And thank you to all of you. We hope to see you in the gallery soon.